Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of The Magic Show. I'll be honest, I've felt a lot better. This past Friday, me and my appendix parted ways and I've only been ornery and sore ever since. So please forgive me if this episode is a bit shorter or less coherent than others. I'm trying to slog my way through here. But no matter, today we're going to go over the biggest and brightest stars of Future Sight. That's right, we'll be running down my personal list for the best cards to pick up and trade for this Saturday. Now I know I'm slightly treading on my buddy Ben Blywis's toes on this one, but I can't help myself. This is my favorite time period in Magic, just before a pre-release when the rumor mills are on tilt and everyone is salivating for the new ideas that come from Washington State. Last Friday, Mr. Blywis discussed his views on spoilers. He said, quote, "The people writing these spoilers do not always have the best interest of the game at heart, often spoil cards incorrectly, and ruin the excitement of articles from people who put a hell of a lot more effort into spoiling a card than hitting cut, paste, and submit." And you can't really disagree with him. The ethics of this practice alone are enough to get you shifty in your seats. I can certainly understand being very upset when Timbermare was spoiled incorrectly, or when you spend weeks working on a preview article only to see it on MTG Salvation a week beforehand. The final verdict? I still think that the rumor mill is the best sales tool ever devised. And better yet, in our Web 2.0 world, it's not the company that's selling the product that makes this possible. Nay, in complete contrast, they are legally bound to try and stop such practices. Now, I've been through a lot of set releases, and each one is almost identical. You see something fantastic that turns out not to be true, you see something fantastic that turns out to be not fantastic, and you get a good idea of how to play the set before you get there. Is this competitive advantage? Yeah. Could this be seen as customer loyalty? I say yes. Do you have any idea how many hours of my life have went into checking and rechecking the rumor mills? I can imagine that thousands of other people are putting their time and effort into finding, speculating, and talking about spoilers. Things that don't even exist for purchase yet. We gamers are a spoiled bunch, excuse the pun. While Planar Chaos seemed to be a strange exception, we've generally gotten our spoilers complete 3 or 4 days before the pre-release. Now this is no different. We have, as of this writing, a mere 14 cards to go before we know everything in Future Sight. This is still days before the pre-release, weeks before cardboard will be sold, a month or more before the online players will get a crack at it. Just imagine the customer loyalty and marketing genius that is a spoiler list. The only thing that can make spoilers bad is a bad set. Poor Saviors of Kamigawa, you really were god-awful, weren't you? Even misleading information leads to discussion, debunking, and rethinking. It makes you realize how wizards balance things before letting them go into the wild, and after playing with the cards you almost always agree with their decisions. The simple truth is, if we're going to be fanboys, we're going to act like it. That means pressuring others to break NDAs, and only the strongest of advocates can resist the temptation to let others in on what will be rocking the game for the next few years. I've kept such secrets myself, but I'll tell you, it is no fun. So for what is fun, let's go over my favorite new cards. Alright guys, here are the cards you want this Saturday. Aurus Samite Guardian. Oh, I'm sorry, is that Orum's chant on a stick at instant speed and free to boot? This and other grandeur creatures are really, really awesome. They're all upside, as they say, meaning that there is nothing bad about them. The green one, which we'll get to, is even more nuts. If I were you, I'd pick up my playset of Infernal Tutors while they're still in reasonable territory. Next is Set's Tiger. Now, I spoke of Hobbs last week, so make sure you get every copy you can. This guy will be hot stuff for quite a while. He simply hoses and hurts too many decks and strategies not to be a commodity for some time. From standard to extended, this guy could have a very lasting impact. Next we have Delay, and Delay is way stupid. Now, it's going to replace Remand when Remand finally leaves, and may do so even before that. This card is incredibly unfair and frustrating, meaning it will be one of the Blue Mages' favorite weapons. This will end up being a chase uncommon, like Remand, which, like former uncommon chase cards like Eternal Witness, will eventually demand $3 to $5 a pop. Foils of this card will be $10 or more right out of the gate. Get yours early. Now, Pact of Negation is next, and, well, They went and did it. They gave us Force of Will back. Now, for those who haven't played with Force of Will, it's a ridiculous card that was just reprinted with a mana drawback instead of a discard one. This is a perfectly acceptable trade-off. This will be a chase rare for vintage players whose combo decks got ridiculous, and standard and extended Tron players, well, they dine in hell with this and delay on their dinner plates. Now, Take Possession is next. I don't know if people realize why Confiscate isn't played as much anymore, and it's because there's so much enchantment removal, particularly the uncounterable kind such as Krosa and Grip, that keeps it away from the meta. Well, with this spell, for a mere 1 more mana, you can get the permanent of your choice, and it's uncounterable, and they can't sacrifice in response, such as when you get their Loxodon Hierarch. This is one that may slip under the radar, but is a control player's best friend. It owns the mirror, and it owns tricks such as Rebuff the Wicked or Avoid Fate. Foils of this will be very expensive in the years to come. Now, Nyx is up next. Damn it, I didn't know this was a rare. I thought this was a great common, but instead will be a chase rare. Why? Because there are plenty of suspend spells you want to take care of in block, but there's also the new Pact spells. There's lots of things in extended you'd like to take care of, like spells played via Mind's Desire, and as far back as vintage, you've got Moxen, Land Grant, Force of Will, or, Pact of Negation to counter. This is a spell that has a long reach and doesn't rely on the suspend mechanic to keep it playable. Up next we have Minion's Murmurs. While just an uncommon, Minion's Murmurs will be popular in the mono-black X archetype, which is either control or aggro, depending on your outlook right now. Either way, good solid card draw. Hasn't been available in black in a while, at least not tied to an enchantment, so we'll take what we can get. It's no Knight's Whisper, but, what is? Corlash is coming up next. Now, Corlash was noted as ridiculous last week. He remains as ridiculous as he was back then. So get you a set and enjoy. And now, if it takes 4 pre-release events to get your shiny Richard Kane Ferguson-esque playset, I would do so. They're that good, that cool, and a great choice for the pre-release foil card. Yixlid Jailer. Yixlid Jailer. Grab a set, grab every foil you can. This will definitely be a $5 uncommon before the year is out. Mark my words. Now, Magus of the Moon is next, and one of the creatures that me and Ben Bly was disagree on, I think this card is going to be a must 3 or 4 of for Gruul builds, as it does exactly what we want Blood Moon to do, but can also kill a person, something that Blood Moon can't. Now, I recognize that enchantments are 1,000 times more difficult to deal with than creatures, but there's also these things called signets that cause Gruul a lot of problems. Between 10th Street Hooligan and Magus of the Moon, we Gruul mages may still one day triumph over the evil Tron overlords. Now, Molten Disaster is next, and this spell is absolutely ridiculous. Easily one of the best spells in the set. This does what Demon Fire could not. Deal with a creature swarm. The mono red decks, the mono green decks, they could all swarm the Tron player by virtue of the fact that Demon Fire can only deal with one dude at a time. No longer, everybody. This gives Tron its strongest X spell to date, even stronger than Demon Fire, giving the control player a board sweeper and an uncounterable win condition all in one. Wow, what in the world were they thinking with this thing? As if triple red mana was tough to do in a world full of signets, duels, and Karus? This will probably be a $10 to $12 spell overnight with $25 foils. You know the drill. This will probably end up as the chase rare from the whole set. Now, Pact of the Titan is next, and thanks to reader Douglas Bouchon, we now have a fun Johnny/Timmy-esque combo. Jin Illuminatus plus this spell plus Angel's Grace during your upkeep. Enjoy winning in the casual room with that one. Now, Tarok's Bladewing's next, and despite being the old Captain Tickle stats and despite being a bit tougher to cast, I think this guy is going to be making waves, and an angry aggro deck could do worse than stick with Tarok's. 3 in hand is 16 damage for 5 mana. When the red-black player can Infernal Tutor a copy, 8 damage for 5 mana isn't a bad deal and will frequently knock a player to single digits. Tarok's is solid. He's a dragon, so the Timmies love him. He's got grandeur bonus for the Johnnies. He's a tournament-worthy card. I'd call this one a home run. Now, Thunderblade Charge is next, and despite being a sorcery, this card remains created of pure awesome, and will be the premier burn spell for some time. Incinerate may push this one to less than a 4 of, but it's still going to get Rada to the top tables, so pick up your set soon. Heartwood Storyteller is next, and you know, they tell me that great minds think alike, so take a look at this card. It's called War of Favors, and it says whenever a player plays a spell, all other players draw a card, and you know what that's from? That's from my own Magic fan set called Fires of Heaven, originally released in 2004. Yeah, 3 years ago, and this idea was already floating around. And it looks like it's been balanced in two very nice ways. One, it's on a more fragile permanent, i.e. a creature. Secondly, it only triggers on non-creature spells. Now this means that Mono Green Aggro featuring our friends Scrib Ranger and Spectral Force will want this guy as a 4-of sideboard card for the control match. You play or flashback Mystical Teachings and I draw a card, all while swinging for 2. This guy is a fantastic casual and competitive card, I think. Now, Baru Fist of Krosa is next, and he's a frickin' house. I mean, a structure with 4 walls, a roof, and a central heat and air unit. The guy owns the board. His grandeur ability is arguably better than all of the others combined, even the Orm's Chant guy. Wizards is finally ready to give the best creature in the set this side of Venser to green, and I'm all for it. Baru is redonk, he will be a mainstay in green/X beatdown decks for years, and his ability virtually forces you to get 4 of him. Get your set as soon as possible. Timmy and Spike just got a new best friend. Now, Glittering Wish is up next, and you can't review the set and not mention this bomb. It will greatly improve the value of your Temple Gardens and will be giving us green/white/black rock decks for years to come. So thank you, Wizards. And as for the new lands, you'll need a playset of Keldon Megaliths, the new Benalia, aka the Scry land, and of course the Scourge of the East, Tolaria West. Also, plan on getting sets of Grove of the Burn Willows, because firstly it looks badass, and secondly it made Kavu Predator awesome. And Dryad Arbor because not only is it the first creature land ever, it simultaneously made the dreams of many an amateur set designer come true, and that's gotta be worth something. Now, Nimbus Maze is another big rare. It's sort of a dual land whose dual landishness is just enough to make it over $10. As if those $22 Hallowed Fountains weren't enough. And that's enough for this week. I think I've went over every highlight I saw on the set, and overall I think Future Sight is really exciting. It's basically the keyword set, as we'll look back on it, and I for one love the direction of the new card frames, the new card types, and even if we don't see what a Planeswalker is, we have plenty to talk about in the meantime. So until next time, this is Evan Irwin, tapping the cards so you don't have to.